Check 1, check 2.
Going to call this meeting to order. I see we have a quorum tonight, And can we get an approval of the agenda for the work session?
Madam President, I move approval of the agenda as printed.
I second.
Any discussion? All show of raise of hands. Okay. We're going to receive a lot of information, I think, this afternoon. We're going to start with the fiscal year 2019 audit report.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Deacle. I'm an audit manager with the Examiners of Public Accounts. Every year, in accordance with the School Physical Accountability Act, we have to present the audit report to the board at a public board meeting. Tonight, I'm here to present the audit report for fiscal year 2018 through September 30th, 2019. Again, this presentation is for informational purposes only. We conducted our audit in accordance with the applicable accounting requirements, which include generally accepted accounting principles, generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and uniform guidance. We issued an unmodified opinion on the board's financial statements as of for the period ended September 30th, 2019. This means that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We did, however, note the following matters and have included them as audit findings on Exhibit 17 of our audit report. They are summarized below as follows. Finding number 1, the board failed to conduct an annual inventory of equipment, material, and other property in accordance with its inventory accountability policy. This finding was originally reported as finding 2015-003. Finding number 2, the board failed to properly monitor fundraising activities at the following schools: Capitol Heights Junior High, McKee Middle School, Impact, Park Crossing High School, Lanier High School, Lee High School, and Wares Ferry Road Elementary. This finding was originally reported as finding 2018-11. Finding number 3, the board failed to ensure that McKee Middle School followed established policies and procedures relating to recording and depositing of money from teachers to the bookkeepers, resulting in missing deposits of $9,507.75. Finding number 4, the board failed to ensure that McKee Middle School, Lanier High School, Brew, Carver High, Jeff Davis High, Capitol Heights Junior High, and Park Crossing School followed established policies and procedures related to the recording and depositing of money. Numerous instances of untimely deposits and missing receipt books were noted at those schools. This finding was originally reported as finding number 2009-01. Finding number 5, the board failed to implement adequate internal controls relating to the disbursement of funds at Brew, Capitol Heights, Carver High School, Jeff Davis, McKee Middle School, Park Crossing High School, Lee High School, Lanier High School, and Wares Ferry Elementary School. This finding was originally reported as finding 2011-003. Finding number 6, the board failed to ensure that Capitol Heights Junior High School, Lee High School, Lanier High School, McKee Middle School, and Park Crossing High School followed established policies and procedures related to event admission receipts. Numerous events were held at which admission was charged, but no reconciliation of the tickets sold to the money receipted was performed. There are also numerous errors noted on reconciliations that were performed for other events. This finding was originally reported as finding 2018-014. Finding number 7, the board notified our department that money was received in support of band activities at Park Crossing High School was being dispersed from a personal bank account of the band director rather than a bank account under the direct control of the school principal. The band director provided adequate documentation of the expenditures from money received during the audit period. For the 2019 fiscal year, the board's major federal financial assistance programs tested were the Child Nutrition Program and the Special Education Program. We issued an unmodified opinion on the Child Nutrition Program, meaning there were no reportable findings. For the Special Education Program, we issued a qualified opinion, meaning that there was a reportable issue with the administration of this grant. The following finding was reported. Finding number 8, the board failed to ensure that all personnel expenditures charged to the special education program were documented in accordance with uniform guidance, resulting in question cost of $66,893.72. The superintendent and CSFO have prepared a corrective action plan, and it is included in our report as exhibit number 20. Our audit was released to the public on February 19th, and a copy can be viewed or downloaded at www.examiners.alabama.gov. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions for Ms. Deckel?
I just had one. In our next work session, can we get, or maybe the work session after that, if it would be possible, if we can get the action steps that will be put in place to address that, just for review? Oh. I'm sorry.
It's actually in the audit report
It's in the-
itself.
okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's at that
Never
exhibit
mind.
20. So if you have a copy of that report, it's there where the superintendent and Arthur prepared those for you guys.
All right, thank
Okay?
you.
Mhm. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we'll hear from Ms. Jade Jones on the 21-22 school year calendar.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. You all should have the final proposed draft of our 2021-2022 academic year calendar. Since our last board meeting, our draft calendar sat with our internal organization and with the public for 30 days. During that time, we received over 200 comments. And with that feedback, we adjusted our calendar slightly, and I'll go over those updates now. The first day for teachers will be August 9th. All students will return on August 16th. The last day of school will be May 26th for students, and for educators, it will be the 27th. We have 7 professional learning days for our educators, and we do have 4 asynchronous learning days for students during the year of 21 and 22. In total, we have 179 days for students, 187 days for educators. And Madam President, we do satisfy the 240-day requirement for our 240-day employees. Madam President, I'll yield back to you. That's a self-paced learning day where students can go online virtually, and then they do self-paced learning assignments.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next up, Dr. Fenderson, talk about physical education and athletics.
Good afternoon, Madam President, board members, Dr. Moore. Just a quick update as it regards to physical education, driver's education, and athletics. As it relates to driver's education right now, the students are doing all of their assignments through Schoology. Once school resumes, students will start back driving on April the 5th. Physical education, everything is being done through Shape America and through ACEFORD. The students have calendars that they have to look at monthly. They have activity logs that they have to send in to their teachers, and the teachers also will do Zoom meetings with those students. Athletics. This year with COVID, the Alabama High School Association allowed every school in MPS to opt out of a sport. We had several schools this year decide to opt out of certain sports. Wrestling, soccer, tennis, and golf. Those were some of the sports that we opted out of. When I say opted out of, every year we have to declare the sports that we're going to play. If we don't play those sports, we get fined. So this year, the association allowed us to have Dr. Moore write a letter stating that we were not going to participate in these sports, so we opted out of those sports. This year also, with COVID, we decided to go tickless and used GoFan. Most of you have probably heard about GoFan. When you go to any of our ball games, you do not come with money. Everything is purchased online. So you have to create an account to purchase your tickets. For example, we can go in, it's a great accountability piece because we can go in and see exactly how much money is being spent at each of our events. For example, when I look today, for example, Carver has sold almost 2,600 tickets for all of their events, and money received will go directly to the school. After each event, for example, we had a basketball game, say today. After 2 days, that money would be, 2 to 3 days, that money would be deposited in the account. And just like the auditors was talking about, everything is straight accountability. Nobody has to touch or address any money. Everything goes straight to their account. This year, with our fall sports, we had 2 schools make the playoffs, Lee and Carver. In volleyball, we had three schools go to the state finals. Cross country, we had 7 runners make it to the cross country state finals. With our winter sports, Carver girls made it to the state finals. Jeff Davis and Carver boys made it to the regionals. Right now, we're in our spring sports, and let me go back a little with our winter sports. Brew Tech girls were the first girls team in Montgomery to win an indoor state title with only 7 young ladies, and they will be here next month at the board meeting. And that kind of wraps it up with sports. Any questions? Yes.
I don't know that it's to you as much as it is to somebody up here, since this is a work session. I noticed you mentioned that that you opted out of like soccer and also wrestling.
Yes.
And I don't, we don't have it in front of us, but I do remember having the supplemental forms to be paying these coaches. Did we still pay them?
No, ma'am.
Even though we didn't have it?
No, ma'am.
We didn't? Okay. I just wanted a quick answer instead of having to go look it up. Good, thank you.
Okay, and the second part, this year, over the last 3 weeks, we had a baseball, softball committee start and implement baseball and softball in our middle schools. Today, you should have in your packet a proposal to establish a head coach supplement for baseball and softball for Montgomery Public Schools. And with this supplement, it's basically half of what we pay our high school coaches. And again, it will be 1 head coach at each of our middle schools.
Any questions for Dr. Fenderson? Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, a facilities update? Is Mr. Anderson here? Okay, Mr. White's in the house. Mr. Watts, we're going to go ahead and we'll come back to Mr. Anderson. Oh, never mind. Here comes Mr. Anderson. We'll do the facilities update first, Mr. Watts.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. I was outside. I was talking to one of our guys. Okay, going through the spreadsheet for the operations update, looking at the projects going down the list. We are currently looking at J.D. Goodwin and Danley's roof through DCM, Department of Construction Management, to look at those plans from the architect's point. We are at a hold on those projects for funding. Mr. Watts is just checking some things and making sure we put it in the right funding source as that comes along. But we'll be looking at those next. And then Capitol Heights roof, we did the pre-construction meeting today. They're waiting on a few of the pieces of the materials to come in, hopefully start towards the end of this week. If not this week, next week, they'll begin that process with replacing Capitol Heights roof. The Union Street elevator project is coming along. The holdup there has been weather, of course, over the last several weeks. We've had rain pretty much every week for about 12, 13 weeks straight, and then colder temperatures have slowed things down with the block laying. That's moving along. The other piece that's delaying is the lead time for the elevator itself, the cab itself for that. So once that comes in, it should rapidly move along and finish that part up and bring that building up to the ADA code that it needs to be at. The Brubaker complex, that should be just the middle school HVAC that we're looking at this point. We'll be adding the rest of them as funding comes along, but that is, we're nearing the final stages, being ready for the bid process with that. Received emails today concerning that, so we're just about through all the preliminary stuff, and then we'll be able to bid that out here very shortly. That is going to be mainly a summertime job. We should get the vast majority of that completed this summer, and then we'll be adding, there'll be probably 8 to 10 classrooms that will need to be done during next fall, and we'll bring in portable air units for that to finish that process with that HVAC unit. One of the things we're adding in with that one as we're coming along, and we'll be adding in on many of the newer ones, is the bipolar ionization. That is something that's, is shown to kill mold and mildew, and then also viruses, different viruses. They are looking at it with COVID claims as well, but it's just another piece that will help keep the air clean, just like our filter replacements that we're doing on a quarterly basis through Train, which has worked wonderfully and has played right into this situation, keeping our air quality as good as it can be during this time as well. The security vestibules, they've kicked off on those and have started the construction on 3 of them this week. They'll move to 2 more to do some of the preliminary construction. The scheduling of that is whatever the framing, if there's any kind of framing or anything that needs to be done, that is being done at this point. The lead time on the structural steel is somewhere around, the metals is around April, and then the glass for that is in the April-May range of those. Hopefully we can finish those sooner. Testing will be, during those times, so we want to make sure if there's anything going on that we're not disturbing testing and work around those times as well, so the contractors are aware of those things also. And that'll complete a third of the elementary schools that are missing vestibules. We'll be working on the other 2/3 as funding comes available. And with the tax passing, one of the things that we were looking at doing is adding a security guard at each school. Will be the ones with the vestibules will be kind of processing them a little bit quicker to get them a security guard that will be working that vestibule and make sure we use it to its fullest extent. The Chromebooks, spoke with Tony today to get an update on that to make sure I'm following along. We should be 1-to-1 based on the numbers that we were given back last spring from curriculum that was provided by the schools. Somewhere this week, we should receive them hopefully by Thursday on the 11th. And Dr. Boswell, they've done a great job. This is a smaller order. Should be able to get it out somewhere either late this week or first of next week, get all of those out once we have them inventoried and cataloged. And then the remaining that will come in will help us fill the orders that were taken prior to COVID to give them their supplies and give us a little bit of extra surplus for breakage and damage and different things like that. So we're looking into that, and we're also looking into purchasing some extra inventory to help us, going into next year as well. The facility planning, Mr. Watts may want to speak into this when he does his portion, but we put the RFQ, his department put the RFQ out about 2 weeks ago. It'll be this Friday, will be 2 weeks. We'll run that for 2 more weeks and receive information from those entities. And that's going to be a driving force of where we look at updating our facilities across the entire district. So that's one of the little bit of the holdups on some things and projects that we wanting to move ahead forward on. We want to make sure we get the right details from the experts, architects, and engineers that these facility planners and project managers utilize to make the best decisions for the district and put our money in the places that are best utilized, that will be best utilized. And then the administrative office consolidation, that's moving along. Again, it's PSCA funded, and so it will not be on our general fund, but that will condense us and we started this process a couple of years ago, but now it's coming to fruition with the funding available. But it'll take 5 administrative buildings down into one location, and we should see an ROI on that within 3, no more than 4 years, and getting those back together. And then, just the countless amenities with being all in one place and not having to travel to another place for any kind of meetings and different things like that. It'll just be much more efficient with what we're doing at our level, and keep us from all of the different deferred maintenance that are in these other buildings, having to move forward from that. For example, 307 Decatur, the HVAC there would be about $500,000 to replace. The roof that's at Fuse, which is leaking, is another $500,000. So just 2 locations, and Bellinger Hill and its age and the different things that are going on there. Just 2 locations is over $1 million just to do some partial deferred maintenance with those things. So being able to be in one location, we'll update those things, we'll save money in the long run, and we should see, again, an ROI on our initial investment within 3 to 4 years. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any of those.
I have a question for you, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Anderson. Could you confirm that there was follow-up from the conversation we had concerning Lanier's roof? There was supposed to be follow-up with the custodian to see was there any additional leaks in that school?
Yes, ma'am. Scott Williams, the architect, went over to the building that day. He called me and went to that building and checked those out.
So you're confirming that there are no new leaks?
I haven't spoken with him on any new leaks, but he repairs all our roofs. So if there were anything that needed to be repaired, he would repair that.
Okay, so I should follow up with Dr. Williams to see if there was any repairs taking place over there?
No, ma'am, I can do that and
Okay.
get that to or Dr. Moore and
Thank you.
move from there.
Madam Chair, if I may. The learning curve is sort of deep for me. I need to understand the acronym ROI. What is that?
Return on investment.
Oh, well, that sounds simple enough. Thank you. And I think you made it plural, project managers are what we're looking at with the most recent RFQ. Is that one or multiple project managers you're looking for?
It would be within that umbrella, depending on who it is. Those facility, the people that will come in and do the facility assessment, they would have project management possibly underneath their umbrella of things, and they would help us, across the district, making sure that we are on top of our projects. It's just, there's a lot going on, managing 6 departments, and then all the different projects that will kick off with this kind of renovation, this scale and scope. It will help us to stay on top of those things and help us, see the best money for our investment.
Okay, I can appreciate that, and I think my question has to do with basically whoever responds to the RFQ. If my firm puts in an offer, am I responsible for all project managers, or might you accept project managers from multiple organizations? And that might be a question for someone else, but
I think it just depends on the company. I mean, some companies are larger than others and can handle all of that underneath them. For example, you know, like some of the architects we've used with BTW, they're not a large enough firm that they could handle all of the projects that we're about to embark on. So you would have to enlist more architects. So some of these companies, these facility planning companies, have a large enough umbrella of people underneath them that they could handle that scope of projects, you know, with one project management grouping underneath them. Now they will enlist more architects, you know, to design different structures or engineers to design different systems, HVAC or whatever it may be. They will expand that umbrella outside of their scope of what they can do. But I would imagine, you know, with the groups that'll be enlisted on this, they'll be able to manage the projects underneath them with one organization.
Okay, I think I'm hearing you. It depends on their proposals, so thank
Yes, ma'am.
you.
And if I may just make just a few statements in regards to the RFQ and the program management. First, we decided to extend the ending date for this particular request. The date was March 17th. We decided to extend that an additional week, so now it's March 24th, to provide everybody who's interested in sending in a request, then they'll have that opportunity to do so. We've also posted it on the on the home page of the website, so any vendor who's interested will have the opportunity to go out and look at that particular requirements. I would also say that when we talk about program management, as Chad stated, and he's 100% right, it really depends on the capacity of those particular organizations. We have seen some program managers that can handle $300, $400, $500 million of work at one time. I've also seen some requests come in, not here, but in other places that I've been, some requests come in where program managers decided to combine their services together and submit one RFQ, and of course, but they combine their services to also handle that capacity. So it really depends on the organization, the type of, what kind of capacity they have to be able to deliver those services. Again, there could be a situation where we could have work going on, or renovations and construction going on at 25, 30, 40 schools at one time. And so you certainly want someone who have the capabilities, experience, qualifications, and capacity to handle all of these works to ensure that we're getting the best product for our dollars.
Thank you both.
Madam President, I did have a quick question, couple of questions. Well, just as a recap and a reminder, what was the total lowest responsible bid for the construction dollar amount for BTW construction project? Just as a reminder.
It was about $26 million.
Okay, and is the general contractor a minority?
No, ma'am.
Is the general contractor, I'm sorry, who is the general contractor that was the lowest responsible bid for the construction project? Again, this is just a refresher for me.
Amison, they're out of Tuscaloosa.
Right. And how many subcontractors does this general contractor have on the project? And what are the amounts that are being paid? Well, overall, are there any minority subcontractors participating in this project with him?
I'm not aware of any of the different subcontractors. I know some of the different engineers and people that they're involving as far as the systems, but there are several that are involved in that. With Bradley, for example, is doing the plumbing and electrical, or plumbing and mechanical, and you know, several of the architects and engineers that have been utilized with different projects from the local area are being involved with that. But there's, from my understanding, there's very few minority general contractors that handle that kind of scope in the area.
But subcontractors, I know we have plumbers and HVAC and drywall. We have those minority businesses. So is it possible, and I don't know if other board members want to see it, but I would like to see who some of the subcontractors are that they will do business with and have it separated to show the minority participation in it.
Sure, I can pull the subcontractor list on that.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there not a policy or requirement to have a certain percentage of minority contractors or subcontractors to do work with Montgomery Public School System?
There's no policy that I'm aware of within Montgomery Schools. We follow the bid process that the state of Alabama set for with the lowest responsible bidder. With that, sir?
Okay, so we're sitting in a city that we are employing contractors that does not look like the makeup of the city. And there's no policy to ensure that subcontractors of minority will be provided the opportunity to provide services to Montgomery Public School System. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, ma'am, that is what you're hearing, Ms. Brown. And let me just state that there will be a policy coming to you at the next board meeting, a minority participation policy. I also want to say that I think those questions are very, very fair questions when we think about the makeup of Montgomery. I do think the district has to do a better job as it relates to minorities' participation and encouraging minorities to participate in some of the contractual work, some of the purchasing, and so forth. Not only that, the state requires that we submit something to them regarding our minority participation. It has to go in with our financial statement. So that's an area that we are looking at. And Dr. Moore may want to chime in, but we were in a couple of meetings and we've gotten several questions. I had several questions asked of us about this exact same topic. And of course, the city government, county government, the chamber, and all of them have expressed an interest in our also increasing our minority participation percentages. So that is something that we will be looking at. There will be a policy coming to you. Sometimes, Dr. Moore, we say sometimes next month?
Next month, Mr. Watson and I have worked on a draft policy, and we're working out a few of the kinks in the wording. But as soon as we get that out, we'll have it on our next meeting at a work session. It will be a statement of basically how we want to approach the use of minorities, emphasizing to use minorities in those cases where they may be able to do some of the work. Someone talked about the bid process. We have to follow that. That's a state law. And then some of the pre-qualifiers that a contractor or subcontractor in many cases will have to meet in order to be able to do the job. For instance, if a roofing job is huge, a person has to be able to have enough people on board in that company to do the work, to supply the manpower as well as the proper equipment to go along with that. And so there are other little entities that go along with using any kind of contractor, whether it's minority or otherwise. But yes, we are drafting. We'll have the final document ready for you to review at our next work session.
And I would just further say, and then I'll pass it back over to Mr. Anderson. You know, we're looking at, you know, not necessarily just this program management, these projects. We'd like to see at some point that some minority organizations will have an opportunity, you know, to build up some capacity so that even after this building program is over, that they'll have opportunity to compete even in some of the other arenas around the river region. So that's something that we're very, very cognizant of. We had some of the same issues in Birmingham when I was there. And so we are aware of those things. Our other local city and county governments are aware of it. And it is something that we do intend to address.
One more thing,
I'm
Mr.
going to add
Watts,
just one quick thing, and that is that my experience with the chamber is they're very keenly in favor of making this happen, making it a reality.
Mr. Watts, may I suggest that you perhaps contact Alabama State University? There are opportunities there with their small business department, as well as there are minority business councils in the area that could possibly serve as a resource as well.
Thank you so much. I've already talked with Mr. Rudolph about that just this morning, and in fact, we intend on attending the next meeting. So thank you.
And we utilize the minority-based businesses as much as possible. I mean, Mr. Montgomery that is doing our sound and audio here tonight is a minority-based business, which we do a lot of audio-visual with him. Cox Interior, a lot of furniture and different supplies there. Pride Fence is our fencing contract that we just put in. And we try to utilize state contracts and purchasing cooperatives to keep us within the bid law requirements of what's going on. And I'll add to something that I've stated in the last several board meetings. In meeting with these facility planning groups, we have stressed to them the use of minority-based businesses being a must when we move forward, that has to be a priority for them, you know, and moving forward. I know Mr. Watts and myself have both said that with those entities. So it is on the forefront of what we want to be looking into. And again, I think Dr. Moore spoke to the making sure that those people are qualified to do the work, you know, to keep our kids safe in these buildings and these different structures with what they have to operate with. We want to make sure we put qualified people forward. And I think what Mr. Watts referred to also is these facility planners doing a good job of training our people, local people in the area, to be able to be qualified to do those things. So we really want to work together with all the entities, and that's another thing that the facility planners will help assist with in bringing that along so we can grow our minority-based businesses, because this type of funding that'll be coming forward, the scope and size should draw some attention and should have some contractors that really want to grow their business that are in that to try to build their business, and we want to help them with that as best we can.
Chad, my question has to do with an estimated date of moving into the Union Street. Really, it's a twofold thought, and that's, you know, we can perhaps dispose of buildings we're not using.
Correct, yes, ma'am. And we're out of Fair West and have gotten out of that location, which is not a great location for property, commercial property, but it got us out of an area that I think our people needed to be out of, an older building, different older systems. The PSC will be vacated as soon as we finish the elevator project, which will be coming up here shortly. And there's been a couple of people interested in that spot, but again, it's an elderly building with a bad roof and about $100,000 HVAC that needs to be replaced in that. And then 9 to 12 months is what they're telling me on the renovation of those buildings that will empty Fuse, Bellinger Hill, and 307 Decatur. I've had some interest. People have contacted about Bellinger Hill. And then I believe that 307 Decatur will sell easily as well with the location that it's in.
So what was our date?
9 to 12 months. Once we bid the process out, I'm sorry, once the bid process is over, there in May, June, you guys will have the low bid in front of you with a contract. Contract will probably take 15 to 20 days to draft and put together. And then you'll have the opportunity before you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Watts, wherever you disappeared to.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Moore. Before I get started, if I could just speak just briefly on a few things as it relates to the 2019 audit that the examiners just delivered the findings. As you know, we made some significant progress from the prior year. Are we satisfied with where we are? No. We want to see a clean audit. But I think the amount of progress that we made from 1 year to the current audit period, I think is very, very significant. And I just want to say that I'm very, very thankful to the board for accepting many of the procedures and policies that we put in place. You was very amenable to some of the things that we had to change, and so we really appreciate that. We'll continue coming to you with additional policies and procedures and a local school accounting manual sometimes this year. We want to kind of get a accounting manual out to all schools so that they'll understand and clearly, we already are communicating these things, but we want them to have that document in their hands, so that'll be coming to you really soon for approval. I will just also state, and of course, Dr. Fenderson talked about the GoFan ticket sale. That is one of the procedures that we have mandated that all schools use. And again, this is a platform which allows all of our tickets to be sold online. Money goes directly to the GoFan thing and directly to our school's account. And therefore, it's no situation where you're selling tickets at the gate and you have to reconcile into a ticket sheet, those kinds of things. So it kind of eliminates all of this hand-on cash. And so we're very, very excited about that. Now, that's not to say that if someone walks up and wants to buy a ticket, that we are not going to take the cash. Yes, we'll take the cash. We do recognize that you do have some people who still are not that comfortable with online shopping and online sales and that kind of thing. So we are amenable to that to a certain degree, and just as long as the procedures are in place to collect that cash. But for the most part, the grand majority of our funds that are being collected at athletic events from this point on will go through this GoFan platform. Also, we initiated something called My School Bucks at all of our schools as well, this elementary, middle, and high school. And this is also an electronic platform such as ePay or eShop or however you want to call it, where monies, fees, or the payment, the purchase of T-shirts or whatever that school may be having, they can also do that through that platform without that parent sending monies to their child or that parent having to come up to the school to give cash. They could do that through the platform, and the monies go directly to the account. And again, there's no exchanging of cash. And that's what we're trying to get out of all of these cash transactions. Also for safety reasons, also with COVID, it also just provided that opportunity for us to go do more things from an electronic standpoint. As it relates to the inventory, there was also a finding on inventory. That finding will go away next year. We did have the inventory done for FY 2020, so that finding should disappear on next year. As it relates to fundraisers, as I think it was, Pam, I think it was January 2020, I think we implemented a process that now all fundraisers have to be approved, have to go through and be approved, signed off by the CSFO or his designee. So now, when there is a fundraiser, because we want to look at what the potential profit margins are and making sure that the correct data is on those fundraiser forms, so now those things do have to be approved. So that's just some of the things that we're doing and correcting some of the audit findings that we've had over the last several years. And now the financial statement. You should have the financial statement as of January 31st, 2021, which is the 4th month of the fiscal year. Contained in the financial statement should be an explanation of financial data, and that's just the CSFO's discussion of our district's financial standing. A snapshot analysis is basically a brief snapshot of our district's financial position, and I'll go back to that in just a second. Monthly budget percentages. As you know, we are in the 4th month of the fiscal year. 4 divided by 12, that's about 33% of the fiscal year. A monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures. list all of our month-to-date and annual revenues and expenditures, and of course compare those to the prior year. Statement of cash flows, all of our cash receipts and cash payments as of January 31st. Then, of course, there's a pie chart of those cash inflows and outflows. The combined statements of revenues and expenditures, along with a combined balance sheet, and also a definition of accounting terms. Board members, if you could turn to tab 2 on the snapshot analysis. Just want to point out just a couple of things. First, if you look at the actual in that first block, if you look at under actual ending fund balance, you see we have an ending fund balance of about $56 million currently as of January 31st, 2021. Now that is because a lot of our ad valorem taxes have already been collected. So those monies are already budgeted for the remaining months of the fiscal year. As I've stated before, we are projecting an ending fund balance of about $31 million. I will say probably in a couple of months, I'll do another analysis of our fund balance, and I probably should say this, but just looking at things right now, operations right now, I probably would be increasing our projection of our fund balance from about $31 million to maybe about $33 to $34 million that we're projecting to end fiscal year 2021. So that's a potential increase of $3 million from our earlier projections. I think we're doing very, very good on our operations. Also, if you look down in that same box, you see revenues as a percent of budget and expenditures as a percent of budget. And you see expenditures as a percent of budget at a 31.7%. Well, as I stated, the fourth month of the fiscal year is 33%. So that basically states that we are spending below the projected percentage of the fiscal year. Again, if everything was perfect, and 4 divided by 12 is 33%. And of course, again, we're at 31.7%. If we were to look at the last box, the general fund analysis, we would see that in January of 2020, last year at this time, we had a fund balance of about $39.2 million. And again, currently, we have a fund balance of about $56 million. So I think we're doing very, very well as it relates to our fund balance. Our 1 month fund balance requirement, of course, is $18.4 million. So we will have a chance of having a 2 month fund balance by the end of this fiscal year. We'll be very, very, very close to it. And I think that's an amazing thing, especially when one time we was talking about possibly going into the red. So I think the board has done an excellent job in making some very, very tough decisions in that aspect. Madam President.
The one question I have is the fund balance of $56 million is because we have not been in school, in part.
That does have a lot to do with it. The expenditures have decreased, operating expenses have increased quite a bit because we have not been in school, so we have taken advantage of that. Also, we've collected quite a bit of our ad valorem taxes. Most of the time, most ad valorem taxes are collected during the months of November through February. And so we've gotten the grand majority of those ad valorem taxes in. But we have had some great savings because we have not been in school. Purchasings are down, along with operational expenditures, utilities, and so forth.
One other thing I noticed, the county ad valorem and the county sales tax, one's up and one's down. Is there an explanation for that?
Let me pull that up real quick.
And I'm guessing.
Well, the county sales tax, I was kind of amazed about the county sales tax because really what I thought was during COVID that we would not see much sales tax. But even on the state level, sales tax have been still growing. So that's been a pleasant surprise to us. In fact, they there was a decrease in sales tax on last year a little bit, but this year I think the market has, pretty much caught up and people are spending. So we're certainly taking advantage of that. As it relates to the ad valorem tax, just for the month of January, it could be a timing difference. Sometimes those monies come in at different times during the month. It may be, some of it may come in for the February, because this is January, it may have come in for the February.
And
So there
people
are
haven't
timing
been
differences.
driving, so the gas tax is down a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one. Mr. Watts, if you can go back, I just had one question on one of the items from the audit findings.
Okay.
And you mentioned that there's the GoFans account for the tickets, but you would make it possible for people to purchase tickets on site.
Yes, ma'am.
So are there plans or is there a policy around who can collect and how that will be monitored and audited internally?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We do have a procedure written and stated and have been provided to all principals and all bookkeepers as to how those collections should be made. But at the same time, we're going to continue to push and encourage parents and encourage the public to go ahead and purchase those tickets online. But yes, we will have that process, have that on-site process. But as you stated, they all know what we require as it relates to collections. The tickets have to match the monies. You started at ticket 1, now you're at ticket 5. Tickets $5 a piece. If you sold 5 tickets, we're expecting $25. So they know that the cash have to reconcile to the ticket sales.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there was a process in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I did have one, but maybe it can wait, but I'll just ask it anyway, and you can tell me if it fits in or not. But in our financial report, I was curious because of all of the money that we're receiving from the CARES Act money, and I know that you all are planning for reopenings per the state's request with this roadmap that has to be in place. And a lot of questions have come up about the mental well-being of teachers and students and different instructional needs, and I wanted to know if that has been budgeted in to the budget for these services for children. And I know it would be under the instructional service and instructional support services, but is there a way we can see something itemized?
Yes.
To see where the money is going and for what particular services? Because I know I get a lot of questions about that.
Okay, sure. And of course, I work with Dr. Williams to see how much money, even in this next pot of monies, how much we'll want to budget in the psychological and the mental health area, so that there are funds in those particular areas. I would also just state that even before COVID, we've always budgeted monies in those particular areas in our regular general budget, but we certainly have done the same in those COVID funds.
Thank you for a great report. We'll have a strategic plan update from Mr. Mitchell.
Click down.
If you will, Scott, you'll assist me, if you will, with the presentation. Great evening, Board Chair, Board members, Dr. Moore. We want to give an update on the strategic plan, goal number 1. Some of the goals will be considered as well when I go over the Learning Progression Academy, so we will intertwine and integrate both presentations as well. The key word as it comes down is transforming. And one thing, we want to operate with a laser focus as we move forward. Next slide, please. So as we meet, every time we meet, whether it's at the district level with the schools doing grade span meetings, we want to always read our purpose and direction and our vision. And we look at keywords to engage, and that's so important as we look at our Learning Progression Academy, educate and inspire. So if we can do those 3 action verbs, we can change results for students. And we look at our vision, we look at the keywords, cultivate intellectual curiosity. If you want to know something, nobody can keep you from it, correct? So we want to cultivate that in all that we do. And you all that are planters, you know about the importance of cultivating. And then we look at our 8 goals interchangeably, but tonight we will look at only goal 1, where every student is college and career ready upon graduation. And I want you to think for a moment, what does it mean to be ready? When you got dressed tonight, being ready, you know, you look in the mirror. So it's so important that you believe that you are ready. If we can get all our children ready. Next slide, please. So we look here. Board member, you have the updated copy. Here we don't have it up, but we identified 3 different statuses of where we are. Incomplete, ongoing, so the pencil is incomplete. The continuous circle is ongoing, and we believe that everything that you do in teaching and learning is really an ongoing process, continuous improvement process, and the check is complete. So strategy 1, provide high quality educational opportunity for all students, is considered incomplete, in progress. And we will talk more about this as we move through this presentation. Strategy 2, prepare and encourage students to participate in dual enrollment, dual credit courses is ongoing. If you don't know already, on the 16th, we will have a fair. We want every single high school student and parent to log in and participate in that dual enrollment, dual credit fair. One of our goals is to have every student graduate from high school with an associate's degree. So we don't want anyone to miss out on that opportunity on the 16th of this month. Strategy 3, implement a multi-tiered system of learning supports. It's not just academically based. We must consider the entire child. We see that as ongoing. So even the ability to log in or not, if we can engage them differently, we can improve where they are. So strategy 3 and strategy 4. Strategy 4 is incomplete in progress. Provide positive behavior interventions and support in all schools. And the key word is in all schools. So until you have it in all schools, it is incomplete. Strategy 5, ensure career and technical education programs meet business and industry needs. Mr. Davis is working feverishly to ensure that that is a check mark, but right now it is ongoing. We met with every school principal in high school, and we talked about what it takes to get there. In slides to come, we would identify some activities and activity evaluations around that. Strategy 6, utilize school library media and counseling programs to encourage and support college and career achievement. So if we can push every program, library media, counseling, we want to encourage through every program, college and career achievement. And that was ongoing. And strategy 7, initiate and develop school library media specialists and school counselor collaborative relationships to ensure that dual enrollment is appropriately maintained and shared with district level leadership. And that was considered complete. That is a great relationship between those 2 individuals. And on March the 16th, you will see that in action. Next slide, please. So, as we look here, and we're only looking at 2021, but we want to look and say one of the goals is to ensure that we're moving forward with our strategic plan. And so we said it would increase by 3%. So just want to show you that we are projecting forward from 2021 to 2024. Next slide. So we're focusing on 4 measurables. The first one is based on what you just saw, increase report card grade for all key performance indicators found on the report card by 3%. The activities to ensure that happens is to implement a multi-tiered system of support and assign a problem-solving team in every school as well as district. To provide professional development using determined interventions and instructional strategies. To monitor with fidelity the interventions that we're embarking upon. To monitor with the efficacy of instruction, whether it's observations or engagement through the Elliott, and adjust instruction and intervention as needed. That goal was measurable, was at an ongoing status. Next slide, please. Increase to 100% the number of schools utilizing a balanced assessment system to gauge student progress by 2023. So we want to make sure not just on the summative assessment, but throughout the entire year, we're evaluating where our students are. So we would establish a comprehensive assessment system and require schools to also establish a comprehensive assessment system. At the district level and in all schools, we will have that conversation. We want to make sure that we have a formative assessment process aligned with the summative assessment system. We want to have an assessment system that requires schools to incrementally identify current performance and grade level of all students. Are they there yet? That's the most pertinent question. Are they there yet? And then we want to define how system-wide resources and instruments will be utilized across all districts. So having the money, and Ms. Smith, you asked a great question there. But we want to make sure that we have a defined way to identify how we spend every dime that exists in this CARES opportunity and this ESSA opportunity. That was considered ongoing goal measurable number 2. Next slide. Goal 1 measurable number 3, to track and increase the number of instructor-student credentialing by 2% annually. We want to make sure that every student get an opportunity to be credentialed while in high school. It would be great if every child could get the opportunity to get something with fire sirens, to get something in Fiscal, to get anything around their particular interest level. So that's one of our goals, is to create a district business advisory board. Matter of fact, we're having a conversation with the chamber. Thank you, Ms. Rose, because we want to have those type of conversations, that how can we ensure that every child get introduced to an opportunity while they're still in high school. We want to increase our credentialing course offerings. Maybe we didn't have enough, so we want to delve into what is it that a child interest is around, and we want to provide that opportunity. That's why we were so excited for this increase with the millage, because we may have the opportunity to address every pathway that can identify what any child and every child is looking to do while in high school. And you want to broaden career and technical course offerings. So at Impact and in all of our high schools, we want to make sure that we have an alignment process that provide more CTE classes to be offered. So if the interest exists, we want to make sure we do all we can to provide the opportunity to our students. If you have an interest there, to me, if you have that ability there, it's going to help you in your core classes to stay focused and stay engaged. We had that as an ongoing status for goal 3. And measurable number 4, increase the number of students who participate in dual enrollment opportunities by 3% annually. It's in line with the last. We want to make sure that dual enrollment is made available. And dual enrollment for dual credit means that while in high school, it will count both for high school credit and for college credit at the same time. So we want to make sure that we get that opportunity to all our students. And we thank all our board members, but especially Dr. Keefe, for encouraging us to add South University. They're one of our 8 partners that we have. And on the 16th, I keep saying it, on the 16th, we'll have that conversation. If you have time, be there. If you don't have time, make time and be there. It's so important. Plan and promote a district-level informative dual enrollment for dual credit interest fair. develop a recruitment monitoring support plan. So if we have a student in the program and they're struggling, we want to support them while they're in the program. We don't want any student to have to get out of the program. We want to support them while they're in there. And we want to track and be made everyone aware of where we are with our dual credit data. That is the last slide on that presentation. Are there any questions?
Mr. Watts. I'm sorry, Madam President. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I am so excited. The dual enrollment program is a best-kept secret, and the post-secondary institutions are excited about getting our students enrolled in the program, so the biggest barrier has been awareness. Where are we advertising and communicating this March 16 program? Because the video that I just looked at was from 2020.
It should be on our website already, but if it's not, we're going to make sure that when we get in tomorrow, that it's there and that we do everything. We're going to work with Ms. Jays Jones to make sure that we get it out. But it's on the 16th. I think it's already been shared.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment, and it's just to the parents out there for all your AUM. I know AUM's doing it. I know Auburn University's doing it. I know South's doing it, and there are plenty of, I think Troy's doing it. There are plenty of billboards out there. Right now for your child to go to college on dual enrollment, it starts in 11th grade, not just 12th grade. It's for 11th and 12th graders. And, you know, I'm not upset about it. I know for me to pay for my kids, I'm paying, you know, tuition for the registration fees and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's very expensive. Right now, what Dr. Coleman just said basically is it is a great opportunity because it's $100 per credit hour. You're not paying the registration. For instance, I think South University, it's close to $5,000. If a student comes in under dual enrollment, they're taking 2 classes, you're looking at, it's $100 per credit hour, you're looking at $800, which is, I mean, it's like, it is the best kept secret out there. And I think AUM is the same way, so you should be looking into the dual enrollments if you're interested.
I had one question, and it is a really good report, Mr. Mitchell. I just wanted to ask, in the planning of the strategic plan, what were the teachers and administrators also brought in on the opportunity to add some input to help build it, or was it considered?
They were from the onset. They were involved. We were meeting before we went virtual. We met together as part of Leadership Council, and at the end of Leadership Council, we broke into groups, and they all worked and was assigned to different goals. So principals may have been on one goal, 5 principals on one goal, then 5 on another goal, and to get to the point of the 8 goals. Yes.
Okay, and my other question is, what I didn't see is who will monitor the goals? Are there people who will be put in place that will be responsible for monitoring it?
We do. For every goal, for every strategy, if you go back to the initial, the second slide, Scott. So, well, I'm sorry, go to the third one. So for strategy 1, we have someone assigned to that. That is me. Strategy 2, and this is the strategy within goal 1. So this is what I am assigned to. So strategy 2, that is Dr. Blakeney and Ms. Foster. Strategy 3 is myself as the lead and all the curriculum personnel that we have. Strategy 4 is Dr. Williamson supporting me and Dr. Bridget Johnson on strategy 4. Strategy 5, Mr. Todd Davis, monitoring that. Strategy 6 is Dr. Blakeney and Ms. Foster, and strategy 7 is Dr. Blakeney and Ms. Foster. And we meet consistently and constantly evaluating where we are. And during our last roundtable meeting, we broke out into all groups at the district level, and we had conversation around the activities and activity measures to determine where we are. Are we in progress? Are we ongoing, or are we complete? And we have that conversation about what do we need to do to become marked as a complete strategy.
And I don't know if this is appropriate because I didn't write the names down, but can we get like just an updated copy of this page with who will be the monitors? And my other question is dealing with the timetable. I see where you, okay, maybe I didn't see it. Plan report card. Okay. Never mind. I saw it in the title up there. I was just going to ask, you know, what were the dates, or did you have a roundabout time where you will monitor throughout the process where you'll just stop and have some stop and checks?
Exactly. It's ongoing monthly. We evaluate all along where we are. So every time we're meeting, we're evaluating based on the activities.
Okay, that was it.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, ma'am.
So may I add just quickly, when you do a strategic plan and you have your overall goals and your measurements, there are action steps, which are the little finite pieces that get you to where you want to be. And so in between all those, there are action steps, maybe 4 or 5, that get you from point A to point B. And so that is, that's where you get to that end result of that overall goal that you're trying to accomplish. And then we have individuals who are assigned to make sure that those action steps are happening. They're not responsible for doing all of those steps themselves. They may have 3 or 4 people who are working with them, but there's a person that I can call up and say, okay, where are we on action step number whatever? And so that's how we're monitoring that on a daily basis within the departments. And then as we meet in our, I call it cabinet meeting every week, we also have the strategic plan on the agenda to be discussed.
Right, so then that's still, you kind of reiterated my point. I just wanted to know as a board if we could just kind of see, well, since it's the district's action plan, that it would just be a little bit more detailed and clarifying so that there's no confusion, I guess, as schools are implementing it, and they'll know, like, you know, at this point, you know, that there will be a pause and the district will be looking. I just think just to kind of, and it's just my thought, not stepping in your lane. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Did you hear some of it? Yeah, I was just saying it's the district's strategic plan, and I thought it would be just looking at some past strategic plans and other strategic plans in other districts. I just thought it would help with the continuity to put those stop and checks in there so that people will see, the employees who are implementing it will see when those particular stop and checks will happen to make sure they're in alignment with what the district's expectations are and what you all are looking for. But I said I may be out of my lane, but I just wanted to.
Let me say that's happening. There will be a lot of people who are involved in all those little action steps. So I expect the overall department heads and the people who are assigned to those goals to make sure that those action steps are happening. And so underneath that, for instance, with the career tech and dual enrollment piece, Dr. Blakely is doing a lot to make sure that we go through all those action steps. She may have several people working with her. She may have the parenting person and some other people working with her, but we look to Dr. Blakely to make sure that that piece is being implemented. So I think we can give you like the overall big picture person who's doing it, but there might be several people under them, but we can give you like a subgroup of people who are responsible for certain things.
Mr. Mitchell, I just want to confirm that what I heard from you is that each of the points, each of the goals of the strategic plan has key performance indicators.
Yes.
Okay, and your action plans are reviewed on a monthly basis or some frequency.
Exactly.
And
yes.
when there's a downturn or a leveling out, there should be some expected action.
It's always, every strategy have activities and activity measures. So if it's not working, we want to tweak what we're doing. So goal one, we meet monthly. So because most of it is embedded in our area anyway, when we meet, we always go over the strategies and the action steps within it. So as Dr. Moore said, so with strategy one, we have a lead, but we may have 7 people assigned to support that lead. So for every strategy, there's a lead, maybe even a co-lead, and 5 to 6 to 7 people assigned to support that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if we have no more questions. Okay, hang on.
Madam President, I'm sorry. Dr. Coleman, I had to look. You asked about the promotion and the communication about dual enrollment. We are working closely with Dr. Blakeney to make sure that parents in the community know about that. We've been meeting, so we're going to roll that out. And while I do have the floor for everyone that can hear me, we are asking that you support this. So you'll start to see a rollout of that fair, and we'll definitely put a big push behind it. So you'll start to see it on the news. We want to incorporate all of our media partners in this, social media, but most importantly, we're working with the principals to make sure that they're reaching the parents and the students to talk about dual enrollment, because it is that important. So I want to make sure that you understood that.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, can you give us a push-off for plans to address learning loss?
Yes, and I want to add one more thing to the dual enrollment. We're going to have a former student that's in college that will speak to his experiences and how it has helped them since he's gone into college, what it has meant to him. So, the Learning Progression Academy, we want to launch into learning. And I apologize to the board members and to the public. The most updated copy I did not send to Jade. She put the right one up based on what I sent to her. But we want to make sure that we talk about a launch into learning. It's so important that we take off like a rocket. The expectation is to operate more like chess and less like checkers. What I love about chess is that you must think at least 2 to 3 steps ahead. In checkers, you can be great, but if you can become a chess player, watch our world. And that's what we want to do. We want to have our students be able to think ahead. When you come to a red light, what do? You stop, right? When you come to a green light, what do? When you come to a yellow light, what do? You should slow down, but what you do? Why do you speed up? Because you know what's coming. That's what we want to be. We want to be chess players and not just checkers. You know what's coming. Next slide, please. So we want to have a focus. We want to have a focus. We want to focus on essential ELA, math, and science standards. And it's not in the order in which you have it, board members. I apologize. You have the most up-to-date copy, and I emailed the last copy incorrectly to Jade. We want to engage in project-based tactile activities. Most students are hands-on, so we want to know exactly what's going on. We want to make sure they get in there hands-on and work with their activities. We want to embark upon strategies that will address deficiency, skills, experience in literacy, math, and science since March 2020. We have not been face-to-face in the entirety since March 2020 with our students. We want to engage with partners to help provide enrichment and relevancy, STEM, coding, and financial literacy. It'd be great if someone could have Arthur-Watts' job in 3 years after they leave high school. We want to make sure they're just that great, almost as great as Arthur-Watts. Conduct pre- and post-tests, and to provide intensive professional development support to our teachers. How to integrate 3rd grade standards with 4th grade standards to support our children who may need to be pushed forward but need to integrate 3rd grade since they have not been in school for a whole year face to face. How to look at utilizing data to drive instruction, to truly drive instruction. So we'll have intensive professional development. Next slide. We want to employ our best and brightest educators to work the Learning Academy. Students need you, teachers. You are amazing educators. The students need you during this academy. We want to compensate every teacher at his or her hourly rate. So whatever you make during the year, put to an hourly rate is what you will make during the academy. you will make more than $25 an hour, which is our normal rate. You will make at least $29. Some will make more than that. We want to make sure that you earn at your hourly rate. We want to begin the academy the 4th 9 weeks and extend it through summer 2022. We can't wait. We need to begin the 4th 9 weeks. We want to engage in Saturday school and even academies during the 4th 9 weeks. We want to employ aspiring educators who may be in college to serve as tutors to support the learning environment. We want to address EL and other vulnerable populations. If a person was not present and they are an EL student or a special ed student or an absent student, we want to support them during the Learning Progression Academy. We want to incorporate activities that address social, emotional learning. And we want to utilize hooks to invigorate the program. We want to invigorate and reinvigorate students, teachers, and the program all at the same time. What are the key features? Mission overdrive. We would love for someone to be in control of this mission. That's the student that we want to produce in Montgomery Public Schools moving forward. 4th quarter essential standards beginning March the 29th and continue to the end of this school year. It could be supported by extended day, Saturday school, or even an academy. However, the schools decide the way it works best in his or her school. Then we want to have an 8-week summer learning academy, Monday through Thursday, June the 1st to July the 22nd. No, we will not meet on July the 4th or even July the 5th. You will have your holiday. But we want to meet Monday through Thursday from June the 1st to July the 22nd. From Monday through Thursday from 8 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Transportation will be provided by the district, and child nutrition will support every site with breakfast and with lunch. We need to decide on the locations to be determined. Right now, we are targeting anywhere from 12 to 16 elementary schools, 3 to 4 middle schools, and 3 to 4 high schools. But the number of students seeking to be enrolled will determine how many schools we engage with. We'll have guest speakers to produce hooks in the areas of STEM, music, financial literacy. We would love for someone to log in and say, you need this because we know that a practitioner that's working in engineering already can give you insight to what it takes to be an engineer. So during the 4th quarter, we want to address EL in every vulnerable population. We want to address students who have been absent. If you have been absent, we want to address it during the 4th quarter throughout summer of 2022. We want to address if there were missing or missed assignments, because sometimes it was not your fault. So if you missed some assignments or if you were absent, we want to support you beginning March the 29th during the 4th quarter. We want to utilize a multi-tiered system of support to help mitigate learning loss by engaging in quarterly spiraling and reteaching. What standard caused you not to be successful? That's the question we want to ask ourselves about every single student. We want to engage in Saturday school or even academies if that's what we need to get the students where they need to be. And we want to have end-of-year formative assessments to gauge student learning within each core content area. English language arts, that's English, reading and writing, mathematics, science, and in high school also history. Next slide, please. So, acceleration. And again, this was not the last slide that we had, presentation that we sent out. So acceleration, students who have achieved the desired proficiency level, they will be promoted at the end of May. We want them still to attend the summer academy. Group 2, we put it in yellow initially because we want to know that you are in caution. You should slow down or you should speed up at the light. But I love the fact that sometimes when you come to the yellow light, you accelerate because you know what's coming next. So students who are on the cusp of performing at a proficiency level in a current hybrid learning environment, we want those students in the Learning Academy for the 30 days this summer, June the 1st through July the 22nd. And Group 3, Remediation and Intervention. Students who have struggled to learn this year, whether they were absent or whether they were not in the most ideal situation, and conceptual understanding hasn't occurred. So we want to have high intensified support during both the summer and into the next year. These students must attend a learning academy if they want to be promoted. Right now, in evaluating a student, we may say that they do not deserve to be promoted based on where they are. So we want to help the student get promoted. So by attending a summer learning academy, they could be promoted. They may have missed one objective, one concept that caused it to happen. We want to evaluate that. We don't want to hold them back because they failed to not pass a math class and keep them in the 4th grade. So we want to make sure we evaluate where they are and support them during the summer and into the next school year. But these students must be learning academy participants. If students fail to complete the required actions, students may be retained. So students, we need for you, parents, we need for you to attend the Learning Progression Academy. Next slide, please. So I love this acceleration. We want students to grow exponentially. So we want to focus on essential ELA math and science standards. We're repeating what we said earlier. We want to make sure that it's project-based, tactile activities, hands-on. Students learn best when they can work with discovery in their learning. Conduct pre- and post-tests and provide intensive professional development. We put this back up here twice because we want to reiterate how important it is to engage, to embark upon strategies, and to have partners in this process of enrichment. Next slide, please. So, vessels of transportation. In all content areas, we want students to engage, to explore, to be able to explain, to be able to elaborate, and to be able to evaluate learning themselves, even before the teacher engages in the learning process. So formative assessment will be used to monitor progress and adjust courses as necessary. Next slide, please. So how will we do this? We will navigate through project-based learning. We will consider the most essential standards. We'll use resources like Edgenuity, Newzilla, and Renaissance. The primary focus in elementary will be the Literacy Act, the ASAP, and foundational skills, especially for our kindergarten students who we have not had all year with us, especially for our 1st grade students who may not have attended kindergarten with us. We want to make sure that we have a special focus with our kindergarten students and our 1st grade students. In the middle school, bridging the gap with conceptual focus. In high school, catch-up courses and credit recovery. Next slide, please. So in grades K-5, we want to have out-of-this-world learning. We want to have out-of-this-world learning. Next slide. And I want you to look here for a moment. Think about that. The planet. Remember this? My very easy mother just sits until noon passes. Remember we learned that a long time ago? So we want to make sure that we have out-of-this-world learning. We engage our students, and they engage back with us. Students are brilliant. We want to make sure we give them a chance to be brilliant this summer and in the 4th quarter, and we get them back face-to-face. Next slide, please. So, launch into learning as a rocket takes off. So in kindergarten through 5th grade, we have multiple elementary schools. We're targeting anywhere from 12 to 16 elementary schools. We will have astronomical performances in reading, math, and science, and we want to have our stellar teachers supported by the ELA math and science education specialists, public and private sector experts. We want to have scientists log in virtually or face-to-face, engineering log in virtually or face-to-face, musicians log in virtually or face-to-face, and artists to help our students understand that they're capable in achieving excellent results. The next slide here, destination of success. So learning to read proficiently and reading to learn for understanding, working simultaneously. Learning to read proficiently and reading to learn for understanding. Subitizing, that's a real word, is taking the components and finding out how you can make it work. Algebraic equations and everything in between. So the components that's individualized as well as the most extensive algebraic equation and everything in between. That's what we want to do this summer and in the 4th quarter when we have this learning academy. We want to have scientific inquiry, discovery learning. We want to look at grade recovery and enrichment. Next slide, please. Grade 6-8, efforts to combat learning loss. We want to have coding on our way ahead. I think it's important that our students learn that they can be the one that designed this right here. Wouldn't it be great if your colleague is the one that designed this right here? Someone you went to high school with or middle school with designed this right here. We believe it's possible if they learn and they engage with coding. Next slide, please. So in the 6 to 8th grade, it's the same information right there. So we're just going to skip to the next slide. And in high school, we want to have the conversation around careers. The goal eventually is that every child graduate with a major while in high school. So while in high school, they learn about financial literacy. They learn about business and accounting. They'll learn about engineering. They'll learn about building and construction. So it'd be great if they were working through a program to determine how best to make this work. Maneuvering in the cloud. That repeats what we had with 9-12, so we'll move to the next slide, please. The ultimate focus is that every student graduate from high school with the knowledge and the skills to succeed in post-high school education and the workforce. Very important. You cannot be career ready if you're not first current grade ready and then next grade ready. And we want to put emphasis on that word ready. Next slide, please. So it's important that we monitor all along. So teachers should identify needs. The building administration should implement strategies and support the implementation of strategies, and the district administration should evaluate results on an ongoing manner. We want to design, evaluate, analyze, develop in a continuum process. Next slide, please. So it's very important that we know about the impact that we can make in the summer, in the fourth quarter, and every day moving forward. Are there any questions?
I just have a comment, Mr. Mitchell. I am truly excited about this program. We are so, we're looking at the mitigating losses of learning loss that we've achieved during this COVID situation. And with a program like this, our students have the opportunity to soar. And this Learning Progression Academy sounds like the way. Will every student in our system have the opportunity to participate in this program?
Indeed, yes, ma'am. Great point. Every child has the opportunity to participate in this, whether you were achieving at a proficiency level, whether you were struggling to learn, or whether you missed the entire program. Every single child has an opportunity to engage in the Learning Progression Academy.
I had one question. I thought I saw Ms. Brown raise her hand. And that's good to hear. I wanted to, because I was going to ask you about students who received no instruction, received packets because of not having devices. And that was just, I was wondering if they could also, will you all be targeting them to participate as well? And on the absentee, which I know you are, on the absentee end, I was wondering how will you find those students that, and it's been a national thing.
Yes.
How do you find those students to come out and participate in this so that they can take advantage of it?
We're working in partnership with Student Services already to try to make sure that we can find every student. And we want to work even more diligently in that, because if a student have not been participating, we really want that student present. Because we have the fourth quarter and 8 weeks in the summer to truly mitigate learning loss. And so we're only going to consider the essential standards. We want to have those students. So we're going to continue to work with the processes that's with Student Services, and we're contemplating engaging with an agency to help us find students as well.
And I know we talked about the EL students,
Yes.
ELL students. I know that probably would be more difficult because, they tend to migrate from area to area because of jobs. So I just wanted to know, you know, how would you all, or what, well, you answered it really, I don't have a question, but you answered it. That was just my question about that population and targeting it to draw those people from those children from that ELL community back into the district, even though they may be migrant moving from place to place. But
Exactly.
if they're moving, we can't find them. But the ones who are still with us, just putting in an effort to really kind of target them. And I was wondering if there are any, I guess my question is, are there any organizations in this city that deal with the ELL population or the Hispanic population and has a good rapport with them? Because those communities sometimes are difficult to kind of tap into for various reasons. But I was wondering what type of organizations are we looking for specifically for that targeted population?
It's an organization called GPS that we're working with, potentially. We had a conversation on yesterday. And matter of fact, I overlooked my colleague, and I'm sorry, I should have passed the mic to Dr. Williamson with that, and I apologize. But there's a conversation around how do we find those students, and we're conversing within our department with Lizette to see what's the best strategy. And again, like Ms. Brown said, we don't really know the best strategy working independently, but bringing everyone together, collaborating, even with outside partners, then the answer can be found. And that's what we're trying to do. So yes, ma'am.
I'd like for Jade to comment a little bit on the communication piece that goes with rolling out the information about the summer activities.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Bernard. Ms. Smith, sorry, excuse me. To answer your question about the rollout, the communication plan, we have a 12-point marketing plan that will reach the entire community. We're starting out with a saturation initiative where we will have direct mail. We'll also, let me pull my notes up here, sorry. We're utilizing print media, direct mail, also radio, going traditional, also community partners, social media. We are even going as far as using marketing initiatives with the grocery basket, advertising, signage, and things of that nature. So we do have a 12-point marketing plan that will roll out that will target all 28,000 students. And it will include households that may not have children as well to help spread that word. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions about the marketing piece? And we'll share this with you as well so you can have it. Sorry, I can't see them.
It's an exciting program. We're all excited about this. If there are no other questions, I think we can keep rocketing forward with a report from Kim Gillis on the school reopening.
Good evening, board members, Madam President, other board members, and Dr. Moore. I think Ms. Hart is passing you all a one-pager from me. Okay. All right, as we prepare to reopen schools, I'm going to provide a timeline of how MPS will reopen for the fourth 9-week grading period. You have a visual that will hopefully help you if you have to answer questions, and I tried to give you a rationale behind each of the decisions that were made. Let's start off with March 8th, which was yesterday. MPS employees who are not classroom teachers or paraprofessionals reported back to work. And the rationale behind that was to prepare buildings to reopen to receive students, to assist with working on the data to get ready for the fourth 9 weeks and the summer programming that Mr. Mitchell just spoke about. And those things, of course, we need to get the data for so we can address all the learning needs, whether it's acceleration or progression, or if it's learning loss. That time will also be used to develop a schedule for planning, for testing. We know that we will be doing our annual assessment testing in April, and we have many students who are working remotely, but they'll have to come back in to test. So we want to make sure that we have a good schedule and we're prepared for that. On March 15th through the 19th, MPS devices will be collected. The rationale for collecting devices is to prepare for the state assessments, to make sure that we've sanitized and cleaned the devices, and to also make sure that anything that needs to be uploaded on the device is there and it's working properly. So the question is, if you take up devices, how will students be learning? Well, we will have learning packets for the students during this time. I want you to also note that in that time frame, March 19th is also the end of the third 9-week grading period. And that's when we'll start that fourth 9 weeks, and we're getting ready for all of those exciting things that Mr. Mitchell just spoke of. March 22nd through March 26th is our spring break. This is a much needed time for everyone. We want to make sure that we make a note that 240-day employees, their break does not start until March 24th. So if they are 240-day employees, they won't start on March 22nd. Their first day for spring break will be March 24th, unless they decide to take some kind of leave for those 2 days. March 29th, all staff will be back at their work sites. This is the week after spring break. Teachers will not have students during that week. Students will be working and learning in a remote status during the week of March 29th through April 2nd. Students will be provided with learning packets from their school, and the rationale behind that is to ensure that teachers have the opportunity to get learning packets ready and distributed to students and to prepare their classrooms based on the number of students that will be returning face-to-face during the fourth 9-week period. Families who decide that their children will return to school face-to-face will begin returning to school on April the 5th. Now, they may not all return at the same time. There's a possibility that they will return on a staggered schedule, and let me explain that. Once we receive all of the responses from the commitment form, then we'll decide school by school how the schools will return. If you have just a few students returning, then of course everybody can report to school on April the 5th. But if not, then the HR directors will work with each individual school to work out a plan to get all of their kids back by the end of that week. I want you to know that the rationale behind possibly having a staggered schedule is to make sure we do it in the most safe way that we possibly can. We want all schools to have their students returning in the safest way possible, and we wouldn't want, a large number of students on campus at one time. We want to do it in a staggered manner if that is necessary. I want to give you some numbers as of today. The commitment form should have been closed on March 5th, which was last Friday. When I looked at the number of families that had responded, we had only like 7,000 of our 27,000 plus students to respond, so we left it open, and I'm glad that we did. Right before the board meeting, I checked the number, and we now have 15,517 responses. We're going to continue to leave that open for a few more days to give parents a time to let us know which way, and that time and that number is so important to us because schools need time to prepare for the students who will be on campus. Right now, we have 6,571 students returning face-to-face for the fourth 9 weeks. That means that so far we have 8,946 students, which is about 58% of our students who will continue to work remotely. As I said before, once we get the numbers, and we've set a target date for this Wednesday to close the form, to get those numbers to the HR directors so they can start working with principals if we need to stagger schedules, then we'll make sure that The principals will get that number the same time that the HR directors will. They'll start planning and working with the HR directors if there needs to be a staggered schedule. We want to make sure that they have time to do a robocall to their parents to let them know about the schedule. We also want to make sure it's on their website. I'll give you an example of a staggered schedule if that's still not clear for some. For elementary school, if it's a large number, we may have on Monday, April 5th, for kindergarten and 1 students to come. But then on Tuesday, we'd have kindergarten 1, and then we would add 2nd and 3rd grade, and so on and so forth. But it would be dependent on the number of students who are going to be face-to-face. And once we know that, we can work with the principal to come up with a good schedule. It may be that we can have all kids to come back at the majority of our schools at one time, but that will really be based on what we find out in the commitment form. The goal is by the end of this school year, MPS will be ready to return to school in the fall of 2021 in the traditional format, having all of our students face-to-face. We will continue to offer access for our high school students and homebound services for any special circumstance that we may have. There are a few other notes I'd like to share with you. We plan to continue to practice social distancing and wearing masks. We plan to also try to social distance as much as feasible in each and every building. We will continue to hand wash frequently. We want schools and offices to be provided with all of the needed materials that they have. And you've heard Chad on many occasions come up with a demonstration and show you all of the things that we have, but we did something more because we know teachers still have some concerns. So Jade is going to come and show a very brief video of some of the options that we have. This video will also be placed on the website, on our internet, so that teachers can see what they need to do in case they need supplies, so that principals can see that information as well. And it will also show all of the different options that we have when teachers need supplies. Jade?
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. I think the board is going to come down and join us as we watch this. Is that correct?
Before you all come down, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I see on the flow diagram, you have a date for the collection of devices for sanitizing. But what I don't see, unless I'm overlooking it, is there a date for redistribution?
Once testing is completed.
Okay, I just didn't see it.
Right, yeah,
on the
I didn't
flow
put a date
diagram.
on there because that will vary from school to school, and I would have to give you a lot of different dates. You know, elementary schools take a certain test and they have a window. High schools have a certain test and they have a window. Once all of that is finalized, that could easily be updated for you.
Okay, but that will be communicated to the individual schools.
Absolutely. They've already met with Ms. Holloway, and they know pretty much what they're responsible for. As of, I know even yesterday when I visited one high school, she was meeting with them via Zoom as well to make sure that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Great question, thank you.
One other question, mine is about staffing again, and it's just the one question. Although I know you all have done an exceptional job trying to recruit and bring people in to replace the people who are leaving,
Right.
And you don't have to answer this, you can send me an email, but I'm just curious as to how many subs we have, if we should need them, so that, you know, there won't be any classes that won't have somebody to
That's a
provide them
great,
instruction.
that's a great question. I will say this, Ms. Smith, we are working, and I submitted to Dr. Moore last week some additional ideas that we would like to do as an HR department to try to make sure that we're hiring, and you'll even see next month that we still have a few more hires that we've hired. Like we found a math teacher, and so we're constantly recruiting, and we're still working with Spur to make sure that they can provide us with the number of subs. It's kind of hard to tell how many subs we'll need, but that's why we're starting our planning early, and that's why Dr. Moore has elected to bring staff back, so we can kind of have a good idea and we're not behind the 8 ball. We can be proactive rather than reactive. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. I'll wait for the remaining board members to join us. As we prepare for reopening, we wanted to make sure that we were clear and very transparent on the cleaning supplies and the sanitation of our buildings. There was a survey that we received from MCEA, I do believe Ms. Pam West sent it over, and I looked over that feedback, and I wanted to make sure that we answered some of our educators' concerns or our staff in the buildings and their concerns. So when we're ready, I would like to show this abbreviated clip of the processes that we have in place to ensure that our teachers know the procedures to request cleaning supplies, as well as tips and tricks to make sure that they're keeping their students safe and the buildings clean, and that's speaking of the custodians. So again, this is an abbreviated version of this. The full version will be available on our intranet site. That's for internal folks in the organization. But this is a short clip, so we can go ahead and play it.
And I'm thinking of the mask and face shields and thinking gloves. Now, do we have access to those materials? Do we have plenty of those? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, as far as PPE goes, this COVID thing was new to all of us.
Sure.
Nobody expected it. We normally provided what we've come to call now PPE. We normally, prior to COVID, provided those things to our custodial staff anyway, because they were the ones charged with cleaning. But as COVID-19 came along, it became necessary for everyone to protect themselves. And so we started providing PPE for everybody. Initially, that was quite hard to do because there was a run on everything. And hospitals and nursing homes, those areas were the primary folks that had first dibs at the PPE material. But we were able to catch up around October, November timeframe, and now we're full stocked on pretty much everything that you would need for protecting yourselves. Some of the things that we have for teachers available, we have this group of stuff here. TB-Side Quat, Purell hard surface sanitizer. We have a number of hard surface sanitation products, disinfectant products.
Got you.
These are good for cleaning your desk and then wiping them down after you've cleaned them. Also, we have some different disinfectant sprays. They're the equivalent of, and some even better, than Lysol. Lysol is a name brand product, and it's more expensive and it's hard to source. You go in the grocery stores or your local stores, you can hardly find Lysol now because everybody is trying to buy it. But we were able to find industrial strength products that do the same thing as Lysol, and in some cases are more effective than Lysol. So a lot of our folks expected the name brand Lysol and thought that that was really doing it. But some of the things like this product, HGDS. HGDS is hospital grade disinfectant spray. So that's much better than a Lysol product.
And Dr. Boswell, this is available to all of our teachers in our buildings within MPS.
All of our teachers.
Awesome.
Now, we won't be providing all 3 cans to each teacher, but they can have one, and they're all effective. They're all CDC and EPA certified to kill the COVID virus.
Good deal. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in regards to the setups on either side here? It looks like everyone is pretty much covered. I know there's a lot of concerns or questions about air quality and things of that nature, and to my understanding, you all have tested, the ventilation in the different school buildings, is that right? So these chemicals are safe, air quality is where it needs to be. So we're pretty much covered. Is that safe to say?
Yes, that's a safe assumption. We do have a lot of older buildings, but we've done everything in our power to mitigate the challenges of dealing with an older building.
And you're still working through?
And we're constantly working and upgrading where we can. When we find a problem, we're right on it. And that's not my area of responsibility. That's the maintenance shop's responsibility, but we work hand in hand. We're all under operations under Mr. Anderson, and we communicate and work well together, so.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Boswell. We are extremely grateful for this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to point out something. Again, this is the edited version. There's a longer version for this, but I want to make sure everyone understands the process for the cleaning supplies. So if a teacher runs out of a disinfectant spray or wipes or whatever the case is, they will go to the appropriate administrator in their building to request more supplies. So it's not a one and done deal. I think that was a lot of the feedback that I read from the surveys. Certainly there's plenty of supplies for teachers, secretaries, bookkeepers, whomever in our buildings and in central office. If you need something, please ask because Dr. Boswell and his team will work to make sure that you receive those supplies. And again, this information will be placed on our intranet, the full version, so you can go back and watch it. If you have questions, feel free to send those my way, and I'll get that over to Dr. Boswell and his team. Or certainly, if you want to talk to your administrator, we encourage you to do that. This clip will be available on the website for the public. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and we'll go from there. We'll have the board join back to their seat. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next part of this, I want to acknowledge all of the people that you have heard speak tonight, as well as people who worked with them. We've condensed these reports and the video and all of this into let's say an hour and a half worth of information, but I will tell you that this group, this staff has worked tirelessly, day in, day out, on the weekend, at night, whenever they had to get some things done so that we can come back in, bring our kids back in, get ready for the space between what we would have taught and what we were not able to teach and what our students may have missed. So it has taken a lot of time and effort and work on their part. And I just want to say thank you to the team that works with me on a daily basis as we try to roll out and address any of those areas that have come before us. And so they've done a yeoman's job, and I want to thank them publicly for the work that they've done. Also, in relation to that, I'd like to thank Alabama State University, Dr. Ross, Dr. Davis in his health clinic. When I went begging for vaccine, at first it was, I think I might be able to give you 50. And I said, we'll take whatever you can give us. And it ended up being about 800 designated for our people who work with MPS. And then again, that Monday, it rolled out again, another 250 to try to make up for those that might have missed it. And so now I'm feeling pretty good about the fact that many of our folks have had the opportunity to get the vaccine. I can't force anybody. I'm not keeping track of it. That's their own personal decision to make, but I do believe that the opportunities are really opening up for them. And again, I want to thank Alabama State and all of the people, even though it was not successful in many cases where we were seeking people to give us some designated vaccines. It was not successful, but we had a lot of people who were out there trying to get it. So I'm grateful to all of you who helped, and also to those of you who've taken advantage of the specific times when you could go and get your vaccine. So I think with all of that happening, along with, herd immunity, as we say, and all the things that will be coming down the pike, that we should be able to safely open our schools back up in the fall. And again, for this last 9 weeks grading period for those who choose to come. But definitely in the fall, we should be able to get our kids back in with a warm body on a day-to-day basis. Thanks.
With that, I'm going to call our work session to a close. Don't go anywhere because that one's over, and I'm now calling our board meeting to order. And we still have a quorum. Can we get an approval of our agenda?
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda.
All in favor with the show of hands? Okay. As you know, I like to start out with some good news that's going on around the district. And I want to add my thank yous to Dr. Moore's to ASU. That was the most organized, well done, teachers in, custodians in, everybody came in a nice, orderly manner. Shots were given, and I can't tell you how much we were trying in the community on many levels to make that happen, and ASU, Dr. Moore and ASU made that happen. The follow-up appointments for those people who did get their shots is in a couple of weeks. And again, thank you to all who helped. That was an amazing, amazing thing. Next, I'd like to recognize Lanier High School for receiving the College Board's AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award. Dr. Antonio Williams and the Lanier STEM implementation team have made great strides in making STEM education accessible to students. Next up for Lanier is the goal to become the second MPS school with Cognia STEM certification. Right now, Brew is the only school in the River region with that certification. Next, I'd like to congratulate Ian Patel from Forest Avenue Magnet for winning the Montgomery County Spelling Bee. He's going to receive $300 and will move on to the Alabama Spelling Bee. And finally, I would like to congratulate the BTW and JD mock trial teams. BTW made the Final Four in the State Youth Judicial competition, along with Vestavia Hills, Spain Park, and Hoover High Schools. JD's team also had a great showing, coming away with 2 wins and just 1 loss to Spain Park. Thank you to everyone who made this possible, especially the hardworking students. And with that, we'll ask Ms. Jade to come back up with some recognitions.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. We have several people we would like to recognize this evening, but I'd like to start with a man who had a vision for youth and softball, youth baseball and softball to benefit the students of MPS. Will Mr. David Thomas Sr. please join us along with Dr. Moore and Mrs. Will? Mr. Watts, we would like to have you join us as well for this moment. Oh, there As Mr. Thomas is coming down, thank you, sir, so much. We'd like to thank Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas is directly responsible for helping MPS greatly expand middle school baseball and softball in the district. He and supporters raised $45,000 and helped the district start 9 middle school baseball and 8 middle school softball programs. This is a result of an effort that Mr. Thomas launched way back in 2019. Please join the board in giving Mr. Thomas a round of applause for his commitment to MPS. Mr. Watts?
Yes. Madam President, I am just so thankful that we have individuals such as Mr. Thomas in the Montgomery community. He is a person that came to us saying we really need to invest in a middle school baseball and softball project for all of our middle schools. And I tell you, the first time he came to us, we said, well, Mr. Thomas, let us work on this, let's look on this, and maybe we can get it started next year. Mr. Thomas would not stop. He came back to us again, and again, and again, and again, and again, stating that, Mr. Watts, Dr. Moore, we really need to get a baseball and softball program in our middle schools. And I tell you, I was one that thought there is no way we could make that happen this year. When Mr. Thomas sat down with Dan Lewis, I don't know if Mr. Lewis is here, and the rest of his committee, and they worked out a plan to start a baseball, softball program and came and presented it to us. And I said, well, maybe it can work. And not only that, I said, Mr. Thomas, now you know the district has some serious financial problems. We're trying to get a 1-month fund balance, so it'll be very difficult for us to invest in a program this year. Mr. Thomas said, Mr. Watts, I and my committee will raise the monies. And that's when he and Mr. Lewis and all of the committee set out and raised close to $50,000 to start baseball and softball in all of our middle schools. And we are so thankful to you, Mr. Thomas. We are so thankful to you for continuously pushing us, prodding us, and saying, yes, we can. So we really, really appreciate that. And I would just say, Madam President, I think this is the kind of urgency that I think we need to operate in so many other areas. So I really appreciate that, Mr. Thomas, and if you don't mind, I'd like you to make a couple of comments to thank your committee and all of the folk that helped you to achieve this mission.
Thank you, Mr. Watts, for inviting me down to receive this recognition. I'm highly honored. I do want to acknowledge my small committee. You've already named one, Coach Dan Lewis. Dan, would you stand, please? Also, my pastor, Reverend Claude Shuford, he's back there. And my son, Coach David Thomas, Jr. And most of all, I want to thank our faithful donors. I want to thank our donors for making those contributions to make this project work. And last but not least, I want to thank the board for adopting that program, and I pray that it will be successfully sustained. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. Can we give him one more round of applause, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. All right, up next, and as Ms. Jones from Chisholm Elementary, as she comes down, we'll have to forgive me. I left her beautiful package at my office, but we will make sure she receives it. You can bring your family down. As she's walking down, she is the Mps Teacher of the Year, and we have a few words for her. And again, tonight we have our very own Aprecia Jones. Again, she's a kindergarten teacher at Chisholm Elementary, and she's transforming the lives of our babies, as I like to call them. She's in her 3rd year teaching, and she's dedicated, and she says that, you know, this year has been challenging, but she's up for the task, and she's very grateful for the leadership of Mrs. Osborne, and she is looking forward to moving forward with MPS. So we would like to thank Ms. Jones and her family, who are all here from Lynette, is that right? So we'll have you all come down and join us. So let's give Ms. Jones another round of applause. And we'll share more about Ms. Jones via email and on our social media and website starting tomorrow. So again, we're very proud of her. Ms. Jones, we have to tell you, Dr. Moore is a kindergarten teacher. Did you know that?
Everything I ever learned, I learned.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. We'll send it to you. All right, no, ma'am. Next up, we have 2 employees we want to recognize for their service. Will Mrs. April Scott and Mrs. Demetrius Ware please join us? Are they still here? Thank you. Mrs. Scott is an assistant principal at Seth Johnson. Principal Tiffany Sism described her as a hardworking, innovative, and dedicated educator. She's a professional at all times and jumps in to assist whenever needed. So we go ahead. All right, next up we have Ms. Demetrius Ware, and she is the Cafeteria Manager at Goodwin Middle School. Ms. Ware helps the Child Nutrition Department in so many ways, including being exceptional at training new managers for the department. So we would like to thank Mrs. Ware as well. All right, let's give everyone another round of applause. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Next, we have some scheduled public comments. And just to reiterate the rules, public comments, requests must be made in advance in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to be solved in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted to follow up by the superintendent or her designee. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes. The board chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chair, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat, out of the auditorium, and or off of MPS property, depending on the level of disruption. And our first speaker tonight is Mrs. Pamela West on policies, communications, and COVID-19.
Good evening. I do want to thank the board, Madam Superintendent, for partnering with ASU. I agree it went off without a hitch. However, we don't want you to stop fighting for us because we still got a lot of educators that have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated. Also, our second dose is due after we're scheduled to return. So I'm asking you to consider. Don't push, don't rush. Please move back the date because CDC recommends to be fully vaccinated. You have 2 doses, and it takes 2 weeks after that second dose to be fully vaccinated. So please consider not rushing us back early. We had over 800 plus the 250 offered at Alabama State University, but as mentioned in your press release, there's over 4,500 employees in this school system, which means there's a lot of educators who may not have had the opportunity to get vaccinated. So we're asking you not to rush us back. Also, I'm glad to hear that you all are working on a plan, but it still seems rushed because you don't know the numbers that are coming back. I haven't heard of you hiring additional personnel to guarantee that 6 feet distancing that's mandatory by the CDC, as well as do like the fact of the video with the supplies, but what's the turnaround of us requesting those? Because remember, we got that one-time care package that's already exhausted, so have these supplies already been delivered to the schools? And secondly, it's a stated fact that some educators, when they get that second dose, might have some underlying symptoms. So I'm requesting that you allow the educators who get that second dose to have the day that they get the vaccine and the day after without being penalized for their sick and personal leave. Also, we do want to recommend that we follow the CDC recommendations, mask, 6 feet social distance, and I want that without flexibility, without the conditions you're saying about space, because we knew that was one of the criteria from the onset, so a plan should have been in place to ensure that every classroom is able to provide that safety, because students are not being vaccinated, and we want to guarantee their safety as well as ours and their families. So that 6 feet should be non-negotiable, should already be in place. Use some central office personnel or whatever. We can do it virtually. They can Zoom in from any place. But please don't rush us back until we are 100% given the opportunity, so continue to fight for more vaccination shots. Some educators have signed up online, but it's not until April. Thank you. I see you. Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Bethany Garth, on concerns about planning and communication for virtual learning.
Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Moore, thank you. As an MPS parent, I've had many challenges this year, but my child is not my primary concern as I speak to you tonight. Recently, I met a 6th grader who attends my neighborhood public school. Her mother is disabled. She does not have internet at home. She has tried and desired to do virtual learning this year, but not all of her teachers are recording their classes. So when she does get access, she is not able to go back and review the material. She struggles with navigating the virtual platform, and she is trying, but she is absolutely failing. Undoubtedly, she will be moved forward a grade in the next school year because most of the students in her class are in the same boat. This story is in no way unique. There are quite literally thousands of students who have fallen behind this year, hundreds who we know have never once logged into a class. What has happened in this school year is simply not sustainable and cannot be repeated. And I want to address tonight concerns about how the decisions have been made this year, because there's been a tremendous lack of communication and transparency about the decision-making process. And I hope we can learn from this experience. First, it is not clear if the district has used any scientific data to make decisions regarding closures. If they did, those metrics were never clearly communicated to parents or to teachers. If the district had consulted with public health experts and decided based on community transmission rates and positive test rates, what is the point at which having school in person is no longer safe? Then those numbers could have been communicated to parents and staff, and everyone could have had clear expectations. Likewise, there could have been school-by-school decisions to go virtual when there was an outbreak in a particular school, which would allow for those schools who were unaffected to continue to educate in person. Secondly, through personal research, I have learned that one factor in remote learning decisions was a lack of substitute teachers. If that is a driving factor in our decisions, the district needs to be transparent about that. That needs to be communicated to parents and to the community at large, because that is a crisis, and perhaps we could do something about it if we could work toward it together. And third, there was never a clear plan implemented to make virtual learning a success. It is well known that many students are not logging on, and many teachers have publicly stated that their Zoom classes are often empty. There is little to no accountability. What will be done to help these children? I appreciate the plans that were announced tonight, but what is being done to compel people to participate in this? If they don't feel safe coming back for the 4th 9 weeks, will they participate in a summer program? The lack of communication, transparency, and planning around all of these decisions has left us guessing about what is happening, and as a result, many children are suffering. We need the district to make a plan now to keep our children in school if we are truly moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Garth, I want to thank you for coming out to represent the parents, because I think, I'm just glad that your voices are being heard, and I would push you to continue for your voices to be being heard. We, our teachers, I am still a teacher at a high school and a college. We all had opportunities to go get the shot at Montgomery Mall. There were 8,000 given in 1 week. I had my second one last week. So to say that they haven't had the opportunity, they've had more than an opportunity. And it's time that we listen to our parents and our students that are missing out on that education. If we are going to continue to have the goals with students first, if we are to continue to have the goals that Dr. Mitchell just brought up to raise the report cards 3%, we better be back face to face. I can't thank you enough for coming here and representing. And I can tell you this, if this is your only time, your voice might be heard. You need to continue, and you need to battle up. Bring them more. Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Rebecca Baker on virtual learning.
Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time today. I actually have just met Bethany today, and or when we walked in here, and you may hear some common themes, but maybe that's a good thing. From the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like as parents, teachers, and citizens of Montgomery, we have not been provided clear details on who's making decisions, the data and research being used to make the decisions, and even why the decisions are being made the way they are. My transparency concern aligns with a communication concern. Communication, whether it be written or oral, has been lax. I personally have written several letters to the MPS board, our superintendent, and state superintendent's office. Each time the consistent response was, "We're working on a plan." These letters date all the way back to the fall, when most other school systems in Alabama, even ones that were larger than us, had a face-to-face option. From others, I heard reasons like, "We don't have the supplies to be face-to-face, the schools aren't sanitary, or we don't have enough substitutes to cover when teachers are sick." All of these are legitimate and must be addressed if valid, but not once did I hear a call to the parents, the community, or business leaders of Montgomery. This community will step up, but it's difficult when we don't know what is needed. My main request or challenge today is for the board and our superintendent to come up with a detailed, thoroughly laid out plan, including protocols to address COVID, to get these students of Montgomery Public Schools back in a face-to-face learning environment and stay that way. COVID is not going away, so we must be ready to address a spike if it occurs. As Dr. Moore said, she hopes that we return in August, and I would love to see a plan to make sure that occurs as planned. We have students in our system who have not attended school for an entire year now. In fact, when I asked in November, the number of students who had actually not logged on one day for the year was 7,000, which is roughly 25% of our student population. We need a plan to address those children and get them caught up. Kids cannot skip a year of learning and be expected to be able to jump right back in. It doesn't work that way. Mr. Mitchell, I am so excited about your Learning Progression Academy. I think that's a great thing. I love the enthusiasm. But again, they've got to be there. You said hands-on, they've got to be there in person. Of course, there are many students who have worked the entire year and been virtual, and they deserve to move forward as well. Study after study have shown that face-to-face kids are more attentive, retain more information, and are also mentally and emotionally better off. Communication and expectations are so important when dealing with something like this. When a plan exists, where everyone understands the plan, the rules are associated with the plan are clear, and then the plan is implemented, the results should be beneficial and much easier. I'm so thankful that the teachers...
Our time is up. Thank you. Mr. Galliard?
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Moore, what a pleasure it is to be here today. The less said, the more remembered. So I'm going to say, think big is the solution. Think big is the remedy. Think big is what we need in every area of life and every area of Montgomery Public Schools. I'm here to tell you that Think Big works. I know it from experience, but I'm going to let these two people use the rest of my time, starting with the mother, Zandra Hall. And Zandra, before you speak, I'm going to ask your mother to stand. Would Ms. Hall just stand? Laser focus on the family. She's the first black anesthesiologist in Montgomery County. And the dream and the thinking big started there, moved here, and she will tell you about her 15-year-old. Maybe I should also say that she graduated from Robert E. Lee High School. Go right ahead. Now remember, you don't have a lot of time.
Greetings to the board. As he just said, I am a product of the Montgomery Public School System. I graduated from Lee High School in 2001. I studied with Flynn Murphy in the theater program, went on to Troy University and graduated with a communication and fine arts. I have traveled nationally, internationally as an actress as well as a momager to my daughter. And I am a product of thinking big and what he said. And listening today and hearing the cries of parents and teachers and boards and everything else, thinking big is the answer. And joining together and noticing that we are in an abnormal time. So normalcy is not available. What it is adapting to the needs of each and every child. And in order to do that, I do believe that programs that were afforded to me, like art programs, music programs, and also what they were saying about engineering programs and finding the individual needs of the children, because if a child has a purpose, they will do whatever it takes for that purpose. And it's not, every child is not the same. And so basically knowing there and starting there, children that are behind need to catch up. Children that are accelerated need to be able to give those opportunities as well. My daughter actually is homeschooled.
It's time. I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Ms. Michaela McDonald.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michaela McDonald of Lamp High School. I come to you to provide a student perspective on the issue of student well-being and health, something I am sure that this board has a paramount inclination to address. With the ongoing, deadly COVID-19 pandemic, education efforts have become strenuous on all parties, including teachers, students, faculty, and staff. I recognize that increased tension with the arduous task of ensuring adequate student education, as well as student welfare. However, opportunity has allowed for the voice of students to be heard. I cannot speak for other schools in which I possess no knowledge of the occurring matter, but I will speak for what I do know, using my particular school, LAMP, as an example. Schedules have changed 3 times during the school year, from 50-minute periods from 8 to 12 in the first 9 weeks, to 90-minute block schedule in the second 9 weeks, to 45-minute periods every class in the current 9 weeks. Students feel that teachers and faculty have been less empathetic to student mental health and their perspective towards the strain of attending school, and have rather increasingly possessed an inclination to care more about their grades and turning in those grades to maintain their job status. A survey put out by students at LAMP to gauge student well-being concluded that many students within the student body are stressed and that they have to prioritize which classes to study for and are overall overwhelmed. Stats from the survey also showed that mental health on a scale of 1 to 5 was majority 2 and 3, with 5 being the best. Many are at a loss for motivation, and 42% of the 500-member LAMP student body rated their stress levels 4 and 5, with 5 being high. Yet when these concerns were voiced to the teachers and administrators, many teachers shut down these statements and continued to ignore the opinions of students. I understand that LAMP possesses a standard of academic excellence, yet we must ask ourselves, should it be at the expense of physical, mental, emotional health, and sanity? These are unprecedented times, and we must consider our most susceptible group of people, children. With staring at a computer screen for the majority of their day, the patronizing tone of teachers and staff, in addition to the lack of empathy, we as students feel that the people we entrust to educate and aid in our development and education have forgotten the fact that we are children trying to survive and persevere through these difficult times. With teachers, coaches, and staff dying every day and COVID-19 cases present, it is important to remember that while education is important, student well-being is essential and in some cases more important than material things such as grades. Education is important, but it should not be the single element of focus for those who are entrusted with the development of a student in the MPS district. I am thankful and hopeful that this board will continue to remember the impact of their decisions, not only on those of faculty, administration, and staff, but students as well. We understand that mental health is at the forefront of everyone's priorities as we work together to better the lives of all inside of the district. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Claire, if I may have one word.
Next we
Madam
have-
Board President, if I may have one word. I just want to acknowledge this student for coming out and expressing the student well-being in all of this. And LAMP has had, you all still have some growing to do in that regards. It's been a long and ongoing situation, and I'm hopeful that eventually this will be addressed, but thank you for sharing your story.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. Nick Rankins on facility safety and management.
Good evening to the superintendent and the board president. We've heard a lot of things about our facilities and different things like that. Two things throughout the night stood out to me on what can happen. I come to you as a community partner, not saying what's not being done, but what can we do, as Ms. Baker said, as a community to help get things done. We've heard small minority businesses and we've heard urgency. We know that our students are returning back to the schools, even with COVID, but to facilities that are going through things such as, I'm just gonna read a few from teachers that teach inside of MPS. Mold and mildew, infestation of rats and bats, windows that don't open, restrooms that can't be used due to sewage issues, circulation and control of air, carpeting that is old, and other issues, but I won't read them all. So I'm saying, what can we do as a community to help? And I know a plan is coming for renovating and different things, but what can we do as a community to help you guys to come in to do some of those things that our kids and our teachers and our administrators can come back to safe and healthy schools? Once again, I know a lot of people is working, but it's people in the community that can do a lot of different things, from plumbing to carpeting to painting. We just have to reach out to those people and reach out to the community and let them know what's going on inside of the schools so they'll know, so the teachers and the students can be safe and healthy as they return. So that's my question. Thank you.
Ms. Nicole Tolbert on charter schools.
This evening, I come to you as a concerned grandparent and citizen. I come to you and ask you, or want to talk to you about what is wrong with some charter schools. And my concern is that we're beginning to hear all these things about what's wrong with public school education. And it concerns me because I do have a grandchild that is in Montgomery Public Schools. And the one thing that I'm looking at as I drive through Montgomery, I see liquor stores and payday lenders. And the next thing I hear, charter schools. And you read the research that charter schools are popping up in highly segregated urban communities with a majority of African American population and the Hispanic population. And we wonder why we can't get that community to come into our schools. Well, charter schools know how to reach out to them. They're businesses, and they literally target this demographic because it fits their profit model. Not all, but some. So I'm taking this information from an article called Charter Schools Exploit Children of Color. And I thought it was a good time to bring it about. How do charter schools target children of disadvantaged populations? Well, first of all, they get them to accept fewer services. They don't have to provide them with those services. The next thing, they're permitted to run without elected school boards. Next, they can cut student services and pocket the savings. If necessary, you all can't do that because you're elected, but they can. And I was happy to see that you all were providing that information to us, the public. The next thing that I wanted to address quickly before my time runs out is that authentic public schools don't have nearly the same amount or degree of financial scandals that people want us to believe that they do. We have some, but you have a method for controlling that. But what about our charter schools? Do they have to make those records public? They don't have to. So I want you to keep that in mind as you're beginning to look at those applications, because to me, that's important. And I thank you for your time.
Ms. Shayla Mitchell on mental health interventions.
Thank you. Thank you, Jade. Thank you to the board and also Superintendent Moore for allowing me this time. I also want to salute young Miss Michaela McDonald for bringing attention to mental health awareness for the students in Montgomery Public School System. The concern that I'm bringing to you today is last month in January 2021, the CDC reported that 25% of Americans were suffering from some mental health disparity as a result of COVID-19. These results aggressed a population of 7 to 10% of students enrolled in public education. With us ignoring these statistics, we also must remember that the community, families, educators, students, and also the general public have suffered under this pandemic. I am deeply concerned, as I have been for the last 10 months, about the steps made by the board and also the system to include mental health resources into the educational paradigm. Mr. Watts mentioned earlier that the CARES Act would be used to explore psychological needs. However, I want to expand that to understand mental health issues are not just psychological. That includes ADHD, that includes autism, that includes substance use, that also includes developmental delays and any other pathological diseases that affect the mind. It's not about just those students who need medicine. It's about those students who need resource personnel to be included in the virtual paradigm. We need more counselors in the school system and in the buildings because the teachers and students are suffering. We've had 8 members of staff to pass away related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have not had one session of grief counseling. I did see the opening of the counseling admissions during counseling week. Thank you, Jay, for sharing it to me. However, I want to know, how are we including this for students in the homes? We're going to do grade recovery. What about mental recovery? We're building security vestibules. What about having counseling resources centers that help to protect the students' mind as well as their bodies inside and outside of the schools? This is a grave concern, as it is a great risk, especially in a demographic of African American students. Thank you so much.
We have one person that signed up for a citizen's comment. The same rules apply. Mr. Alan Bowen, excuse me.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. This has been a wonderful meeting, better than what I actually expected coming out. I've enjoyed the presentations, and I really come in this afternoon or this evening very disgruntled, and I think we have some meetings lined up very soon, hopefully, that some of my grievances, we're going to wait to handle that because I think it's a better situation. But one of the things that has been pointed out tonight by Ms. West and Ms. Garth is that the planning has not been on point as far as allowing parents to make decisions to return back to school. If you guys would be a little bit more transparent with us, you know, we have access to the televisions. I came to the August meeting, I came to the October meeting, I stated this very same thing. If you be a little bit more transparent, I think Mr. Rankin said something about the community involvement. I'm a pastor as well. I also want to offer something that I've been trying to offer, is what Ms. Brown stated about the Small Business Development Center at Alabama State. I'm the advisor. There are many things that you can do with the PTAC setup with a bid program that you're not doing, and you're setting yourself up for lawsuits. I'm going to be totally honest with you because I've been looking at this for a little while. I'm asking that you actually would seek the help that's being offered to you. My issue with the athletic program, it really needs to be overhauled from some issues that we're going to discuss hopefully real soon. With the charter school that she stated, one of the things about the charter school, the Dream Big Academy that was turned down, I've looked at that business plan. There's no reason why that should have been turned down. And if we let politics come in and bring in 4 other schools, then that's wrong, okay? So we need to actually be fair and have an understanding of what's right and not let politics be brought into this situation. Dual enrollment, I have a question about how is that going to change the scope of what's going to be actually offered now to the school, because I'm a component, but I will again say I was very disgruntled because I've asked my daughter, this is Tuesday, 4 times this week, if she wants to leave the school system. That's how disgruntled. And I know those that don't know me, I've raised probably $500,000 to this school system through my business. I've donated resources of up to $20,000 at Brew Tech, only to see equipment thrown in the trash. All right, so I have some issues that we're dealing with that need to really be addressed and cannot be just swept under the table anymore. I followed protocol after protocol, only to see nothing done and only to feel like my kid is going to graduate. This is my 3rd child that's going through the system, and I'm still looking at the same issues I was looking at years ago. Again, I'm going to offer my assistance. I'm going to give my card to Brother Mitchell, Brother Watts, and Brother Chad, I believe, right? Anderson, right? To offer my assistance to actually move forward on some of the things that are going to keep us out of trouble down the line. Thank you again. Again, please include us in the planning. It helps us to understand what you're trying to do. To just come out and say that we got a vaccine on Monday and then on Tuesday to say that we're going back to school in April, that is not going to help me make a decision. That's
Mr. Bowen, your time is done. Thank you.
Claire, if I may have one small comment. Mr. Bowens he's in your district, but he was also contacting me. So if you all can hopefully make sure he has that meeting set up about some things. He just shared a few things with me that I think.
Okay, next up, Dr. Moore.
All right, thank you all for your patience tonight. It's been a very good meeting, I think. At this time, I would like to make recommendations to the board. Number one, which is item 8 on your agenda, I recommend approval of the consent agenda, which contains the calendar, the financial statement, board minutes, baseball, softball supplements, and the bid report.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation to accept the consent agenda, the school calendar, financial statement, board minutes, baseball, softball supplements, and the bid report.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? It's unanimous. Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move for the acceptance of the recommendation for the personnel report, certified personnel, personnel report, classified personnel.
Second. The first one is just for certified.
Personnel report, certified personnel, personnel report, classified. She didn't, oh, you didn't do this? I'm sorry.
These are one at a time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. Personnel report, certified personnel.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, just brief before I vote. When we first started this meeting, there was a gentleman that got up and was talking about there were certain athletics that were opted out, one of which was wrestling. And I had mentioned the supplement. And then, of course, looked at this, and maybe it's just certain schools, but item 75 does say wrestling.
Ms. Gillis?
It's item 75 says, there's a wrestling supplement there. Okay. 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 Well, oh, Eagle, I caught it. Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel, with the exception of S18. I'd like for you to pull that one. S18.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for personnel report classified minus 18.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? And that is unanimous. Our next meeting is Tuesday, April the 13th at 5 o'clock. We'll have a work session. Immediately following that, we'll have a board meeting. We are adjourned.